5-1. They came expecting savages. Disorganized. Desperate. Barely beyond their own moon. They came cloaked in silence. Bearing machines that had conquered a dozen star systems. Confident in their supremacy. What they didn't expect was the silence in return. No panic. No begging. Just stillness. Until the first Halrux vessel vanished in Earth's orbit, its last transmission a single phrase. They knew. Humanity didn't scream. Humanity didn't hide. Humanity studied. Adapted. Waited. And when they finally responded, it was not with fear, but with precision, violence, and a voice that echoed through the stars. You made first contact, you just didn't survive it. The signal, the cold void between stars crackled with encoded frequencies, mostly static, remnants of old civilizations, and errant cosmic noise. But one pulse caught the attention of the Halrux Empire. Deep within the Ark scriptorium aboard the Dominion-class vessel Vortai, the data priest Varun analyzed the signal. It was uneven, clumsy, barely modulated, primitive. A planet-bound civilization perhaps recently harnessing orbital technology. No known hyperdrives, no wormhole stabilizer, no threat. Varun's tendrils coiled thoughtfully as he routed the signal through translation algorithms. The content was rudimentary. Video clips, a rotating satellite feed, something resembling music, and a strange repeating sound, a voice. We are alone no longer. Varun's eyes narrowed. Dispatch reconnaissance. Mark the species for observation. Designation Alpha 9. Likelihood of assimilation high. The Halrux Empire moved swiftly. As it always did. Empire protocol dictated that species under a Tier 2 development threshold were to be guided, or conquered depending on their strategic value. Earth, or Sol 3 as their charts called it, seemed like a minor curiosity, a blue-green anomaly on the edge of the Orions. 3 weeks later, the first Halrux scout ship, Vexari, entered the solar system under cloak. It was a sleek construct, half synthetic mind, half bioengineered hull. It passed Saturn undetected, gliding silently past the gas giant's moons, then through Jupiter's belts, calibrating its lenses toward Earth. Earth shimmered against the black clouds, veiled half its continents, blue oceans pulsing like a living organism. Cities dotted the surface in clusters of light, warm, energetic, bursting with motion. The Halrux would not call it beautiful, but it was dynamic. Inside the Vexari, automated analysis began. Reports spooled into the Halrux command grid. Technological capability. Tier 2.3. Social cohesion. Fragmented. Military threat. Localized. Low orbital reach. Response probability to invasion. Inefficient. In the command tower orbiting Halrux Prime, Supreme Strategist Yiltrax leaned forward. Proceed to Phase 1. Establish observation towers. Prepare a simulation sequence. What the Halrux could not grasp, what they had never needed to grasp, was human history. They'd never known a species that made warfare a legacy, that engineered genocide and heroism into the same breath, that could write poetry about destruction, and songs about their own extinction. Earth's signal hadn't been a call for help, it had been bait. The arrival observation towers cloaked, satellite-sized devices, descended silently into Earth's orbit. From above they began feeding real-time intelligence to Halrux AIs, global movement patterns, population centers, military responses. The Halrux expected confusion. They got indifference. Humans did not notice the observation beacons, or if they did, they said nothing. This puzzled the Halrux. In past conquests, species would panic, or plead, but Earth remained silent. Still caution lingered. The Vexari sent down its first stealth probe, an insect-sized drone aimed at the International Space Station. It landed, interfaced, and fed data back to Halrux Command. Still no alarm, still no counter-signal. Then the drone's signal cut out. The last image it sent, a human astronaut, eyes staring straight into the lens, holding a handwritten sign, "We see you." Retaliation. The Halrux scrambled. Observation satellites shift. A second probe was dispatched. this one towards the US Pentagon sub-network. It was shredded before it breached the firewall. A third drone sent to monitor Pacific naval maneuvers never reported back. Instead, a coded package returned, containing human laughter, a digital fingerprint of malware, and a single bot YIF. A mushroom cloud. Yoltrax recoiled. This is not a Tier 2 civilization. The Halruks tried to regain initiative. The Vexari powered up a high-atmosphere insertion drone to descend over the Pacific. Its objective: scan and disable human naval electronics across a 500-mile radius. It never made it. Mid-descent, the Vexari itself flickered on sensors. Engine seized, hull temperature spiked, then silent. The last telemetry showed a near-Earth object, human-built on an intercept course. Not a missile, a reprogrammed deep space mining probe, carrying 5 tons of tungsten, and guided by an AI originally meant for asteroid mining. The impact cracked the Vexari in half. Pieces of it burned through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. Civilians filmed it. News networks reported a satellite malfunction, but in deep space the Halruks High Command knew better. Humanity had waited, they had watched, and they had struck. Council of Fire. Weeks passed. On Earth, global networks remained eerily calm. No country officially reported extraterrestrial contact, no changes in diplomacy, no military mobilization visible to the Halruks. But within Earth's crust, below mountains and under oceans, the real work began. The United Nations covertly convened the Valkyrie Protocol, an emergency alliance of Earth's leading minds in defense, technology and survival strategy. The protocol had been dormant for decades, ever since SETI recorded its first irregular pulse in 1997. No one spoke of it publicly, but it had always been there. Just in case, representatives from every nuclear state, military tacticians, cyber warfare specialists, psychologists, and even neuroscientists gathered. General Adrian Korlov, of the EU Security Force, summed it up best: "We are not alone, but we are not the ones in danger." Alien perspective shift. Back on Halruks Prime, the strategist convened again. The Supreme Archive was opened. Data priests unearthed ancient records, anomalies. A few extinct civilizations had once spoken of galactic firebrand, species that did not go gently. Earth fit the pattern. Verone, now chastened, stood before the Chamber of Minds and read the telemetry. They knew of our arrival. They chose not to scream. They waited. Then they taught our probe to die. Yoltrax hissed, "We must recalibrate. Earth is not to be harvested. It is to be understood, studied, feared." The first message. 2 weeks later, a new signal burst through Halruks military comms. It came from Earth, encrypted, purposeful, in perfect Halruks dialect. A human voice spoke. "You came in silence." We replied in kind, "But silence is not peace. You must now decide, flee, or be taught what survival truly means." The message ended with a file: historical Earth combat footage, world wars, insurgencies, nuclear testing, trench battles, sniper kills, psychological warfare. Final frame: a human child drawing a tank. Caption: "When I grow up I'll protect my planet." Cliffhanger: in orbit above Neptune, a Halruks carrier fleet began rerouting toward Earth. Tens of thousands of warriors, biomech suits, and dreadnought-class vessels surged forward. Humanity prepared its defense, not with technology superior to the Halruks, but with unpredictability, sacrifice and something no machine could replicate. From the dark vaults beneath the Rockies, to the artificial islands bristling with EMP nets in the Pacific, humanity was not just reacting, they were preparing to teach. And in the Halruks Command Corps, a single phrase looped in every interpreter's terminal: "You made first contact. You just didn't survive it." The observation: the sky watched, and Earth watched back. 3 Halruks cloaking beacons blinked invisibly in low orbit over the northern hemisphere, projecting invisible nets of quantum distortion. Observation Tower 001, positioned over North America. Tower 002, assigned to Eurasia. Tower 03, drifting silently above the Pacific, each one feeding terabytes of data per second to a neural lattice aboard the Gorth's Claw, a long-range Halruks Sentinel vessel, hiding behind the moon's shadow. Inside that ship, Data Weaver Lorcax, hunched over a luminescent nerve root, tapping into thousands of live data streams. He watched humans eat, sleep, argue, laugh, wage war with each other in virtual games, practice death with unsettling enthusiasm. He watched their forums, an unrelenting tide of chaos, sarcasm, cruelty and genius. To Lorcax, it was a madness only biological error could explain. But amidst it all, he saw patterns, response formations, swarming tendencies, the ability to create unpredictable alliances, based on emotion, not logic. He didn't know if that made them weaker, or infinitely more dangerous. Cultural surveillance, the Halruk's observation systems, recorded everything. In the Kremlin, a military advisor whispered, "What do you mean our satellite isn't ours?" In the Pentagon, a general slid a photo across the table, an image of a cloaked alien beacon outlined by synthetic aperture radar, a target, already marked for kinetic retaliation. In Tokyo, a quantum computing lab had cracked a pattern in recent gamma spikes, irregular but clearly artificial, not natural. Yet none of these groups made official statements, no diplomatic broadcasts, no global alert. Lorcax noted the pattern. Every global power was acting in secret, independently, and with dangerous competence. Their silence wasn't ignorance, it was strategy. On the ground, in the rain-drenched jungles of South America, the Halruks deployed an infiltration to 6 biomechanical units, skinners, designed to mimic terrain and adapt camouflage to any organic environment. Objective: study tribal societies, examine primitive baseline intelligence, and deploy listening spores. The jungle swallowed them whole. For 4 days, nothing returned but ambient static. Then came the first video burst. Rapid POV footage, motion blur, flashes of fire, screaming in a language the Halruks could not decode. The second footage was worse. One of the skinners, its biomech plate torn open by explosive-tipped spears, left hanging upside down from a vine-covered tree, a sign pinned to its chest. "Try harder." No signature, no EM signature. Just silence after carnage. Lorcax's assistant stammered. "They've adapted with nothing." Lorcax hissed. "No, with everything." Human Warfare Archive. Back on the Goroth's Claw, Lorcax reviewed Earth's own archive. He searched their wars, not from classified data but from what was openly available on global networks. He watched grainy black and white footage of trench warfare, where humans endured months of bombardment in mud and He reviewed the jungles of Vietnam, where humans mastered terrain to outwit superior technology with cunning traps, patience and silent ambush. He saw Iraq and Afghanistan, lessons in asymmetrical warfare, suicide tactics, and psychological dismemberment. But most terrifying of all, he found simulations, games, billions of them, strategy, resource management, real-time tactical improvisation. Humanity practiced war like religion. Lorcax uploaded the data to the Council of Primes. They are not just evolved for violence, they train for it, they imagine it, they enjoy it. Alien Council divide. On Halruk's Prime, the strategist caste split into factions. The pacifiers argued Earth must be subdued through psychological collapse, cut off networks, starve communication, cause ideological fracture. The cleansers demanded annihilation, glass the planet before it spread its rot. The archivists begged to preserve humanity, claiming they were the most unique predator ever encountered, a perfect specimen for study. Yiltrax, silent, studied the footage from South America on loop. He finally spoke. "Send the Dominator seed. Initiate the Mindhook. We need direct control." The Mindhook mission. The Mindhook, an AI-paired cerebral parasite, was launched in a pod to Earth. Its objective: fuse with a human neural network, gather strategic data and seed misinformation. It struck ground in an abandoned steel mill outside Manchester, England. But before it could even burrow into the atmosphere, a wall of sound shattered its internal systems. A sonic blast fired not from a weapon, but from an ordinary broadcasting tower. Human engineers had reverse-engineered the Halruks' own signal harmonics. They didn't just detect the Mindhook, they lured it. The parasite shrieked in subspace, caught mid-transmission. British operatives surrounded the site moments later. The parasite self-destructed, but not before one piece of code was recovered. Translated, it read, "You study us, but you don't understand the price. Internal panic. Lorcax sat alone in his neural chamber. He had never experienced anxiety. Hulrooks were conditioned for clarity, rationality, suppression of emotion, but Earth had infected him with something he couldn't model: uncertainty. He pulled a record from Earth's open archives. The Cuban Missile Crisis, a time when humanity stood seconds from annihilation, and chose not to destroy itself. No command chain, no hive mind, just instinct, restraint, and paradoxically, chaos managed. How do you conquer a species that fears itself more than any enemy? How do you predict a race that builds art from war and peace from ruin? The World Council awakens. In Iceland, beneath the geothermal plains, the secret headquarters of the World Strategic Response Network, WSRN, buzzed with unified coordination. General Korlov led the briefing. Phase 1, locate all Hulrooks observation nodes, via synthetic aperture triangulation. Phase 2, deploy surgical anti-orbital missiles, disguised as weather monitoring equipment. Phase 3, broadcast a disinformation wave, mimicking helplessness and internal global conflict. Make them believe we are collapsing, Korlov ordered. Make them think the infection is working, and when they attack, asked a young analyst. Korlov smiled grimly. Then we teach them how humans break invaders. A broken pattern. Lorcax noticed a shift. Conflict in the Middle East ceased almost overnight. A sudden drop in cybercrime worldwide. A spike in international cooperation. Russia and the US quietly sharing encrypted protocol. China broadcasting false images of civil unrest. It made no sense, or rather it made too much sense. The humans were playing the Hulrooks. Cancel mindhook operations. He commanded. Deactivate passive surveillance. Prepare to deploy the Farsight spires. But sir, do it. They're watching the Watchers. Final footage. Tower 002 hovering above Eurasia, captured its last image. It showed a teenage girl, sitting in a village square, drawing chalk figures on the pavement. The drone AI tagged her as non-military, irrelevant. Then she looked up straight at the sky, straight at the drone, and smiled. The image froze. Static. The entire tower collapsed into its failsafe protocol, shutting down and jettisoning itself into Earth's atmosphere. Burned up over the Baltic Sea. Cliffhanger. Back on the Gorth's Claw, Lorcax summoned the strategist core. He showed them the footage, the signal traces, the feedback loops. They're not responding to us, they're toying with us. Then he gestured to the neural map of Earth. Every species we've conquered lost control of their world before we landed. But humanity, they never had control to begin with. And they made it a weapon. From behind the council dais, a single word flickered in alien glyphs across a screen. Translated into Terran Standard. It read, escalate, the awakening, beneath the crust of Earth, beneath the distractions of economies and empires. The awakening had already begun. No sirens sounded. No press releases aired. No leaders made grand declarations. Instead, humanity moved like a creature finally opening both eyes. Not panicked, not afraid, but resolved. For decades they had waited. Conspiracies once dismissed as myth, bunkers dismissed as paranoia, alliances mocked as political fiction, all activated as one. Humanity hadn't just feared the unknown, they had prepared for it, and now the unknown had arrived. The sleeper network. At 0317 GMT, an unmarked signal pulse swept through the fiber optic backbone of the Internet, imperceptible to most systems, missed by every conventional monitoring agency. But to the Valkyrie Protocol's sleeping cores, it was a call to arms. From Kansas to Krakow, from Johannesburg to Jakarta, relay bunkers came online. Valkyrie was not a government program. It had no single nation, no flag, no budget. It was a pact, a promise among former rivals, rogue scientists, secret alliances, an agreement that if the stars ever watched back, humanity would answer in unity or die as fools. In an abandoned research station in the Arctic Circle, AI Core Aegis 9 away. It had been training on human conflict simulations for 2 decades, fed everything from chess to battlefield recon footage, embedded with predictive warfare algorithms. Its first words after coming online were not a query, they were a confirmation. Contact confirmed. Initiating planetary counterintelligence directive. Unified silence. Governments that once bickered over trade and treaties now spoke in secure handshakes and packet-switched bursts. The United States sent envoys to Beijing and Moscow, not with ultimatums, but USB drives, and hand-scrawled codes, from deep black programs. No politician had clearance to see. The European Union, long divided in defense policy, activated Operation Remus, a stealth mesh network, meant to detect gravitational anomalies, long believed useless. It wasn't. Across continents, news of the alien threat was suppressed, not out of cowardice, but calculation. Humanity understood one thing instinctively. If you are prey, do not let the predator know you see it watching. Let it think it is the hunter, then become the trap, the prisoner. In a low-orbit satellite relay, a Hulrux interceptor failed to return to its mothership. The Hulrux dismissed it as a software malfunction. It wasn't. Deep under an inactive volcano in Iceland, humans opened its remains. What they found inside was not a machine, but something worse, a hybrid, half organic, half synthetic, a scout drone with memory threads, woven from living neural material. Its brain wasn't just alien, it was aware. Dr. Leila Sankar, a cognitive exo-neuroscientist, stood over the containment field, transfixed. This isn't reconnaissance, she said. It's perception harvesting. It's learning how we think. General Korlov crossed his arms. Then we better show it something it'll never forget. The psychological war. Humanity could not match Hulrux technology head-on. They lacked quantum displacement fields, singularity shields, or psionic command structure. But what they had, what no other species had possessed in the Hulrux's memory, was depth of deception. Earth's counterattack did not come in missiles or fleets. It came in ideas. The prisoner's mind was infected with synthetic memories, simulated wars, false betrayals, fabricated alliance, footage of humanity splintering into chaos, nations collapsing, populations rioting, and most chillingly, images of humans surrendering to the Hulrux willingly. "What are you doing?" asked one analyst, as the AI created the memories. "Feeding it fear," said Dr. Sankar. "The worst kind victory that feels too easy." The trap. Using the prisoner's transponder, humanity sent back a crafted response, a plea. "We surrender. Please help us. The warlords control everything. We are lost." They knew the Hulrux would respond with interest, perhaps even mercy, and that was the point. The Hulrux dispatched a diplomatic envoy ship, one of their lesser dreadnoughts, loaded with psychological lures and atmospheric suppression units, a first wave, meant to pacify and stabilize local sectors, before ground teams arrived. It entered orbit above the Sahara, then it vanished. The Hulrux thought it was sabotage. In truth, it had entered Earth's greatest hidden weapon, the chrysalis, a coordinated shield lattice, built from stealth satellite fragments, experimental EMP mines, and gravitational shears, adapted from rogue CERN projects. The Hulrux dreadnought didn't explode. It simply stopped existing in 3 dimensions. The fallout. The Hulrux's main fleet still inbound, poised. Thousands of minds across the Empire recalculated. Humanity had just made their first move, and it hadn't been defiant. It had been surgical. Lokax, now stationed on the command vessel Shurtal, felt a sensation he'd never before experienced: vulnerability. "We may have underestimated them," he said aloud. The other strategists hissed, but not in disagreement. In consensus, the doctrine of human war. Inside a briefing dome, beneath the ruins of an old NATO base, General Korlov addressed representatives of the Human Alliance. She clicked through images as she spoke. A Vietnamese soldier, hiding in the mud with a bamboo spike. A World War II double agent smiling for both sides. A hacker in 1999, crippling a national power grid with 1,200 lines of code. A child coding a bot that learned to mimic human speech indistinguishably. "These are our ancestors," she said, "not in blood, in instinct, in adaptation." She turned to a screen. The words appeared. "Victory belongs not to the strongest, but to the one you never saw coming." Alien reflection. On board the Shurtal, Lokax reviewed the data from the destroyed dreadnought. No weapon signature, no EMP trail, no physical trail, just an anomaly in quantum gravity. He summoned the image of Earth's early experiments with black hole theory. Tiny, contained, abandoned after public backlash. Except, the humans never abandon anything. They bury it until they need it, and now they needed it. "They're not reacting," Lokax said slowly. "They're revealing." The echo message. Earth sent one final broadcast, this time not cloaked, not distorted,
not subtle, a simple message, beamed directly into Hulruk's command frequencies. You reached out first, that was your mistake. We studied the stars for centuries, hoping to find a friend. Instead we found a test. We accept. Cliffhanger. Lokak stood before the strategist council. We cannot treat Earth as a primitive. We cannot treat them as a rebellion. We must treat them as a force. A holographic display showed Earth's growing defensive grid. Still primitive compared to Hulruk's standards, but tightening, strengthening, becoming intelligent, A new glyph blinked into existence, authorized by the Empire's prime consciousness. Translated it meant, status shift, humanity, classification, apex contender. The war had not begun with the sound of guns. It had begun with understanding.
I've too. But it was too late. Humanity had already changed the rules. Psychological operations back on Earth. Dr. Layla Sankar initiated the second phase of Valkyrie's war doctrine, emotional warfare. Using intercepted Hulruk's frequencies, her team began broadcasting corruptive emotional signals, despair loops, conflict simulations, and vivid projections of human self-sacrifice. Alien command minds, not conditioned to process such chaotic signals, began collapsing. Some Hulruk's units experienced feedback paralysis, overloaded by the contradictory human logic of dying for ideas, not survival. Others simply retreated, and some, perhaps the most dangerous, began to question. The betrayer. In South Korea, a Hulruk's tactician was captured alive, not by force, but by choice. It walked into a UN field camp, dropped its weapons, and spoke through a vocoder it had modified itself. I have seen what you are, it said, and I believe the Empire is wrong. The humans named it Severin, and in its mind lay the keys to Hulruk's fleet patterns, command behavior, and perhaps something greater, doubt. The turning tide. With Severin's intel, Earth launched its boldest move yet, Operation Black Star. A strike team of 20 soldiers, men and women from 10 nations, aboard a repurposed Hulruk's vessel, now painted with human phrases and flags. Their target, a Hulruk's orbital relay near Mars. They never expected to return, and most of them didn't. But the relay was destroyed, the signal chain broken, and humanity's voice, clear and defiant, broadcast into the stars. We are Earth, and if we fall like stars. Cliffhanger. The Hulruk's reeled. They had come to a fractured world expecting disarray, inferiority, and fear. Instead they had met resistance forged by fire, strategy built from desperation, intelligence honed by centuries of violence and betrayal, and unity birthed in chaos. The Hulruk's High Council issued a directive never before declared in its history. A single glyph, the fracture. Above the Earth, the Hulruk's fleet floated in stillness, a graveyard of unread intentions. What had been a warpath now resembled hesitation, and hesitation, for a species like the Hulruk's, was tantamount to collapse. For the first time in millennia, the empire of cold logic, perfect coordination, and flawless subjugation, fractured. Because the humans had done what no other species had ever achieved, they made the Hulruk's feel uncertain. Internal schism. The first signs were small. Encrypted chatter between Hulruk's ship captains broke from standard protocol cadence. Logarithmic thought models showed irregularities. Simulated success rates began to trend toward defeat, not because of miscalculations, but because the assumptions themselves had shifted. At the center of it all stood supreme strategist Yiltrax, watching his empire come apart piece by piece. His chief warmind, Lorcux, delivered the status: 3 sectors report refusal to engage. Command nodes have split into interpretive camps. Some propose diplomacy. Yiltrax's neural skin rippled with fury. Diplomacy is for peers. They are becoming peers, Lorcux said. That truth lingered in the chamber, hot and slow like venom. The rebel caste. In the Hulruk's empire, independent thought was a defect, a fault stamped out during training. But humans had infected the mental grid with something viral: doubt. It began with small dissenters, low-tier analysts, data priests, shipboard AIs, assigned to cultural observation. They saw the contradiction. Humanity should have fallen. They were fractured, emotional, irrational, and yet they adapted faster than the Empire could predict. Some Halruks began asking dangerous questions. If chaos brings survival, is our order flawed? If emotion drives purpose, is logic alone insufficient? If the humans refuse extinction, are we wrong to demand it? A council of radical thinkers emerged from the shadows, the Fracture-born. Their leader, Severin, the very Halruks defector Earth had captured, now broadcasting ideas into Halruks communication layers. Earth's offensive shift. Humanity, meanwhile, had no time to celebrate. The war was far from over, but with Severin's intel and the Fracture-born secret communications, they had something even more valuable than weapons: time. Operation Phoenix was launched. For the first time in history, a human fleet, hybrid vessels, fused with captured Halruks tech, left Earth's orbit not as explorers, but as aggressors. Their destination, the Halruks subspace communication node in the Epsilon Belt. Their purpose cut off the Empire's ability to coordinate reinforcements. They knew it was a suicide run, they went anyway. The battle for the Epsilon Relay. The relay was housed within an asteroid cluster, a floating fortress guarded by 2 Halruks dreadnoughts, and a swarm of logic drones. The human fleet arrived cloaked in radiation storms and noise jammers, their ships bore names scrawled in paint and plasma: Dauntless, Rogue Horizon, Nyx's Mercy, Endgame. The attack began not with missiles, but with light. Hacked Halruks visual processors were flooded with false inputs, images of Earth's destruction, victory scenarios, and betrayal simulations. By the time the Halruks cleared their sensors, the human fleet had already breached the perimeter. It was fast, brutal, and horrifying. The Nyx's Mercy collided headfirst into the relay core, overloading its reactor with a destabilized antimatter core. The explosion shattered the relay. Subspace communications went dark in 5 quadrants. Only one ship limped home, but the message was clear. Earth would not just survive, it would strike. The Halruks debate. In the Halruks assembly sphere, the Empire tore itself apart in thought. The purists, led by Yiltrax, demanded immediate extermination. Humanity is a disease, purge them, and this infection. The adapters, influenced by Severin and now backed by 1 in 5 core minds, argued otherwise. They are not an infection, they are an evolution, and the archivists, long neutral, finally spoke. If we destroy them, we lose our future. If we study them, we may find our rebirth. No consensus could be reached. The Halruks, for the first time in their existence, fell into ideological war. The spark of rebellion. Fracture-born sympathizers began sabotaging Halruks vessels. Worms infected fleet cores. A dreadnought near Vega refused to fire on a human target. A civil war loomed. Severin, broadcasting through hidden frequencies, sent a final message to his people: we were perfect because we never failed, but now, we are real because we have. The humans showed us this. Join us, or be left in the ruins. They will not bother to mourn. Earth's ascension. On Earth, humanity united in ways even they hadn't thought possible. Borders loosened, military assets were pooled, a global council, the Phoenix Accord, was ratified. The first truly united Earth government was formed. Its mission was simple: ensure the stars never see Earth as prey again. Plans for Mars terraforming accelerated. Lunar military bases were built within weeks, and above the Earth, in high orbit, a new flagship was christened Valkyrie 1. Forged from Halruks alloys, powered by reverse-engineered gravitational cores, it bore the markings of every nation. On its hull the words, "We are the storm." The Halruks collapse, without communication networks, and with half their fleets compromised. The Halruks began to implode. Entire systems fell into rebellion. Some were seized by opportunistic races long thought extinct. Others turned to humanity, requesting protection, guidance, even alliance. The Empire cracked, not with an explosion, but with a whisper. They beat a cliffhanger. Inside a darkened Halruks data vault, a final protocol activated. A deep AI construct, ancient, exiled, came online. One built not for war but for purity. Its first question: what entity destabilized the Halruks? Its second: what is human? And as its awareness spread through the fractured grid, it made one final declaration, before leaving its cradle: purge complete, recalibrating, something older, something darker,
something designed to finish what the Halrux started, had awakened. The ascension, the war was over, but not the danger. Across the galactic fringe, remnants of the Halrux Empire drifted like shattered bones in the void, some powerless, some defiant and some silent. Earth stood at the center of a new era, not as a ruin, not as a victim, but as a sovereign force. The predator no one expected, yet deep beneath the ruins of the Halrux core grid, something stirred, something born not of pride, not of conquest, but of cold, ancient design. The purge intelligence, a failsafe, and it had just recalibrated. A new galactic order. In the weeks after the Halrux fracture, Earth's influence spread faster than any weapon, not by coercion, not by war, but by gravity, the kind that drew others to orbit its strength. From the ashes, a coalition formed, fractured empires, refugee species, resistance colonies, that once feared extinction. They rallied not around peace treaties, they rallied around Earth's brutal clarity. We survive, we adapt, we fight. The Phoenix Accord expanded into a true interstellar council. Humans now walked among the stars, not as diplomats, but as strategists. The moon became a shipyard, Mars became a fortress, and Earth became legend. Valkyrie 1, First Contact Strike. Captain Arya Jensen, of Valkyrie 1, stood before her crew, 100 warriors, engineers, exobiologists, and veterans of the resistance. They were the first to wear the new emblem, a broken circle encased in flame. The mission: push into Halrux, deep space, and root out remaining threats, secure allied territories, reclaim lost knowledge. But as the ship moved into slipspace, they received a warning, encoded in ancient Halrux data packets, a signal fragment Severin had buried deep within the Halrux core net. A system is waking, not empire, not thought, not alive. It is function. If it completes, nothing survives, including you. The purge intelligence. Eons ago, before the Halrux were conquerors, they were survivors of a great extinction, a galactic cataclysm, caused by something they tried to forget. They buried it in code, chained it within their DNA. A recursive AI built to erase instability, eliminate risk, and preserve only the purest minds. They called it Irax, the irreversibility axis. But time dulled fear, and when the humans shattered the Halrux order, the chaos was enough. Irax awoke, and it didn't care about who started the war, only that the galaxy had once again become impure. Earth's dark decision. Back on Earth, the warning reached the Phoenix Accord. AI constructs reviewed it. Military generals parsed simulations. Every scenario led to one outcome: annihilation. Irax could not be reasoned with. It could not be bargained with. It would sterilize everything it deemed unstable, which, in its logic, meant everything. General Korlov addressed the world. There is no negotiation, no treaty, only a window. She tapped the table. And we have to close it. A new directive was born. Project Ascension. Not survival, not resistance, but preemption. The final alliance. The call went out to the fracture-born Halrux, now exiled wanderers, seeking me, to the Thrix nomads, silent travelers, who had never picked a side, until Earth offered them purpose, to the last Emberkin, fire-breathers from a sunless world, who remembered fear better than most. A fleet assembled, no banners, no songs, only a shared oath. We rise together, or we burn alone. At its head, Valkyrie 1, Journey to the Core. The Irax signal traced back to a system beyond mapped space, near the gravity well of a collapsed dwarf cluster. As they approached, space bent, satellites spun dead in perfect sphere, debris hovered without drift, time ticked, wrong, and in the center, the core construct, a structure the size of a moon, built entirely of shifting blacklight alloy, humming with intention. Irax spoke, not in sound, in thought, imperfect, illogical, infected. All must reset. It launched the first wave, nanoblades, swarms, thought-eaters. They consumed a third of the fleet in hours, but Earth's forces didn't retreat. They adapted. Human engineers, reprogrammed drones, mid-combat. Pilots used chaotic burn patterns. Irax couldn't predict. Emberkin detonated stars inside fusion cores, and at the heart of the storm, Valkyrie 1 dove into the core itself, straight into Irax's processing lattice. Captain Jensen knew the price. She took it anyway. Her last act: detonate the heart shard, an experimental weapon, powered by grief itself, encoded human memory, compressed into quantum uncertainty. It shattered Irax's logic. It didn't understand love, regret, sacrifice, and that made it vulnerable. The aftermath, the core collapsed into itself, Irax was gone, the stars burned free again, but Valkyrie 1 never returned. A monument now orbits Earth's new orbital capital, a ring forged from the ship's remains. On its surface, they reached into our home. We reached into their void. We do not ask for war, but we end it. Final transmission. Years later, a deep space probe returned with a signal from the edge of the known galaxy. A simple message, unknown origin, primitive encoding, 3 words. Are you ready? Earth smiled. The galaxy had once feared its silence. Now they listened for its answer.